distribution network design, optimizing distribution networks. It's one of my favorite topics on this channel, and we're going to be talking to someone about it coming right up. One of my favorite topics, and we're sharing this topic today with a guest. Let me see if I can get this right. Sofia Rivas Herrera, welcome. And one of your role is actually helping design and optimize distribution networks, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Right now I'm doing that for HP and the global team in supply chain. And yeah, it's something that I've been, I think like from when I did my certification at MIT, that's where I started specializing more on the subject and understanding the different tools out there, the different methodologies that you can use, and at the end, yeah, defining, it's basically translating a physical problem into a mathematical model. So that's something very interesting.
Sounds like it. So it's one of my passion topics, I think, because so many organizations really don't understand how they can totally screw up their supply chain with the wrong networks. and conversely, if you get it right, you can deliver enormous benefits. Maybe for those watching who haven't really come across the concept before, you could tell us, in a very short summary, what is distribution network design about, and what are some of the things that you try to achieve?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to put it very simple, but imagine
Please do. We're simple people.
Or simple people, right?
Yeah.
So imagine you have a map of your physical locations, not only manufacturing centers, distribution centers, maybe crossdocks there, all your final customers, all mapped out. So you know where your supply chain starts and where it ends. You know where you produce, where you store, and where you deliver. You also know how you deliver, in this meaning which mode of transport you use. And for all of these, you have different capacities, not only in terms of space, of how much you can store or how much you can put into a truck or a plane or a container ship, but also in terms of how easy it is for you to satisfy an order or satisfy it in a certain period of time. So this, we call it service level. And you can measure service level between each of these nodes, because we will call each distribution, each production area, each client a node. And when you draw a line to connect each of these nodes, that's how at the end you'll see a network or a web, right? And what you try to do in network design and optimization is find ways in which you can connect these dots while achieving an objective. And this objective, most of the times, or traditionally, it has been, how can we do this while spending the least amount of money we can, right? So that will be your target, your objective, and everything you'll align it to that part. And other type of objectives could be ones that are becoming more popular, which is lowering CO2 emissions. So you can have that type of objective. And what you'll do is, okay, this is my objective. This is what I have, this physical web and network. And additional to that, you have different type of constraints that can be internal and constraints that can be external. Maybe you have some clients that require you or request that, I don't know, that you deliver in half pallets and not complete pallets. Or you have, you know that you can only deliver in a certain window of time because of weather conditions. So all these things go into a blender. This blender, I'll use it as an analogy for a tool, because obviously you can do this and by hand if the amount of nodes and amount of variables and constraints are feasible but for you to do it by hand or for you to do it in Excel. But most of the times we know that your network won't look that simple and you'll need a more powerful tool. So this blender will be your tool. You mix it up and then you come up with a result of a combination that will help you achieve as most as you can the objective that you set.
What a great summary. I love the analogy of the blender. You gave me flashbacks then to when I studied at Cranfield University, which was way too long ago. And we had to build a network model using Excel, which was quite difficult. Thankfully now, as you say, we have lots of great tools, blenders, good analogy, where we can throw in all the variables and see what the answer is. One of the traps, of course, and I don't know whether you've come across this, is that sometimes you throw all the data into the blender and you give it a 1 minute blend and the answer comes out. How do you know if the answers are accurate or not? Have you ever come across that? So sometimes it can give you the wrong answer. You know, it's
correct.
garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, and it's that point, right? It depends what you throw into the blender. Sometimes we think we're throwing key ingredients.
Yeah.
And we're actually, I don't know, we left the spoon inside the blender, right? And then you'll just mess the result out. But yeah, of course, I've seen different companies and different colleagues that tell me, yeah, I mean, we used the tool and then we didn't get the answer that we expected. And yeah, I think the biggest problem is this part of translating your problem into a mathematical model. And I think for this, we are missing a lot of key talent that actually know how to do that. So I think we have, well, or at least that's what I've seen in from the people that I know, that there are very few people that actually know how to do this in a very good way. And especially with big companies, big networks, it's sometimes hard to keep track of, okay, am I still on the right track? Am I still on the right path of collecting the data that I actually need for the blender, right?
I think
And
that's a
the
great,
other,
yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, I think that's a great idea, a great example of, you know, when people are studying things sometimes at university, they think, why do I need to know this theory? Because there's a tool that will do it for me. But if you know the theory and you know how to kind of do it manually, you can at least estimate what you think the answer should be, which I think is a key point. And if you understand supply chain, you have a good idea of what answer the blender is going to spit out. So that if it's, you know, if you don't know how to do it manually, if you don't have an idea in your head, if you don't have the supply chain experience, it's going to spit an answer out and you're just going to accept it without questioning it.
yeah, the other thing is a common mistake is choosing the blender without having any ingredients.
Yeah.
And without even having the data foundation that you can actually go dig for the things that you need easily and then put it into the tool, right? And this happens not only in network design, I think in everything. In when you select an ERP, when you are looking for, I don't know, a WMS, a transportation management system, I think many jump into choosing which is the best tool without being ready or understanding what their actual problem is. I mean, it's like going and buying a hammer and not knowing what thing you wanted to fix from your house.
Yeah. No, that is so true. Let's just rewind that and say that again.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about the tool. It's who was it who said start with the end in mind? Was it Stephen Covey? Yeah, I think it
We'll
was.
look at the real reference.
Yeah, the guy who wrote was it 7 Habits of Highly Successful People or something? I think it was Stephen Covey. And I'm sure one of his quotes was start with the end in mind. And that's exactly it. You know, whether you're selecting a WMS, TMS, analyzing a network. What is it we want to achieve, and what's the right tool to do that? I see that so many times when companies are selecting a WMS and they've got this big ERP system and it comes with a WMS module, and they're saying, oh yeah, we'll just use that. But what functionality do you need? Is that the right tool?
Mm-hmm.
Or is something you can buy off the shelf for $20,000 going to do it better for you? So yeah, I think that's a really great observation. So what is it you enjoy? I mean, this is going to sound like a really nerdy conversation, but what is it you enjoy about network design and optimization? Because it'll be interesting for viewers to sort of see some of the roles and the jobs and so on in supply chain.
I think what I enjoy is that nerdy part
Yeah.
of it. I think it really ties really closely to the theory that you saw when you studied this. And it actually, I think it's one of the few things that I say like, oh my God, this really has an application in real life. Because I mean, I would say like integrals do not play a lot of a role in my day-to-day life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they certainly open my mind into looking at problems differently, but yeah, I think like the theory from network design is something that you really use in real life and solve real life problems. And I love this idea of building scenarios and testing which one is the best.
Yeah, I've found over the years, we're doing this a few hundred times, that it's fascinating that you can start out analyzing a network and you're thinking, this is probably going to be a good scenario, this might be a good alternative. But the really interesting bit is when you start doing that analysis, I think, and you go, actually, the answer is somewhere between these two, and it's something that we wouldn't even have thought of, that,
Yeah,
the
and you feel
analysis
like
uncovered.
a chemist or like someone
Yeah,
in the
yeah, that's
lab.
it. Yeah.
Uh,
It's like, who would have
yeah,
thought, that actually looks like a really good option.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they won't give you they won't give us any Nobel prizes here, but
No. But it's fun.
but
It's
you
fun.
feel that way when you finally get it right. It's very satisfying. And the other part is when you actually, and maybe this is not something that I enjoy a lot because it's once you get the ideal scenario, the ideal solution, and going into implementation, then you find out that there are other constraints that you couldn't actually model, but will definitely change the plan that you have. And
Mm,
and some are part of the relationships you have with your stakeholders, with your suppliers, with the internal people in your company, with
mm.
even regulations in the country or in the region that at the end will change your plan
Yeah.
in
That's
such
a,
a way
that's a,
that
yeah. That's a really key point. And when we're doing this with clients, we end up with very often a theoretical sort of best
mhm,
scenario. And we always say to them, the theoretical one is generally not the one you're going to go for, the optimal one, because it might have distribution centers in areas which are not practical, or that
yeah,
kind of thing. But it starts to point you towards the solution, and then I think you have to have that practical experience to say, well, okay, this is what the blender tells us.
mhm,
Reality tells us we need to just adapt that a little bit.
correct. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's having this flexible mindset that at the end you will still need to modify it again
Mm,
uh, for it to actually happen, and letting go of this perfection that you found.
yeah, that's right.
Maybe that's
That's right.
not that nice, but uh,
Well, there you go. Sofia, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on distribution network design. Who knew it could be so fascinating? Maybe we're going to encourage some people to not only get into supply chain, but get into this area of analytics as well.
yeah. And if I may say something else,
Mm,
network design is and will be playing a key role in the upcoming years. And that's because one, it's becoming trending topic. because of sustainability. So one way to achieve a sustainable future and your sustainable targets in your supply chain is through network design. So if you're passionate about these two topics, or at least one, you can make sure that you'll have an interesting career in the upcoming years. And yeah, the other thing is that with AI, hopefully, it will be accelerated even more. But still do study the theory because we don't want any AI to drive us, to make us think that we have the answer without even like kind of testing it. But I think, yeah, these field will grow a lot in the future, in the upcoming future.
Yeah, no, that's good. I've had a look at AI for some of these sort of solution developments, and there's a lot of potential there. But I think with any of these things, you've kind of got to know what's the answer, broadly what's the answer going to look like, because I need to know whether it's sending me in the right direction or not. But it can help us. Certainly, it can help you uncover solutions that you might not have thought of. But
Correct.
again, it's always be careful what you put in, garbage in, garbage out. So knowing what to put in the mixer is the really important bit, I think.
That is right.
Okay, Sofia, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to know more about network design, I'll put a playlist link down below the video, because there's loads of videos on the topic on the channel, more sort of theoretical stuff. Great to talk to you, Sofia, about the broader sort of interest element, I think, of network design and why it's such a fascinating field. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.